Hello guys, Adam here from Switch Indie Fix, and I am bringing you episode 38 of the Switch Indie Fix podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything indie on the Nintendo Switch. How is everyone today? It's a very overcast looking autumn day here in Vienna on the 9th of November, and I'm just recording the podcast on my own today just because I've got a bit of a busy weekend, so there's a bit less editing and stuff to do time-wise when I do it by myself. Nevertheless, we're going to have a really great podcast. There is quite a decent bit of indie news this week. I'd say it's more interesting than newsworthy. It's not going to blow anyone's minds, but still, nevertheless, it's something for us to talk about, or at least for me to talk about and you to listen to. But as always, guys, let me just give you a gentle reminder that we do need your questions for the show. If you have any Nintendo or indie game related questions and want them read out on the Switch Indie Fix podcast, just go to switchindiefix.com/SIF podcast. Plus, if you're looking for a fun gaming community to join, then why not check out the SIF Discord server? Just head over to the switchindiefix.com/Discord to join. The Discord server is getting very, very active, which I really like, and people seem to be boosting the Discord server. Thanks, Bastian. I still don't really understand what that entirely means, but apparently it's a good thing. So Bastian, cheers for doing that, and I think Darth did it as well. But as always, we will start our podcast off with the first section of the show, which is always news, and I totally messed up that segue, but never mind. So this week we have a total of 3 stories and quite a few news games of note. So that's, as always, half a baker's dozen. First up is Nintendo releases its top 15 most downloadable games or downloaded games of October, and have a guess which game is number 1. I'll give you a little pause. Have a guess. Okay, good. So, surprising perhaps no one, Untitled Goose Game was the most downloaded game on the EU eShop last month. The list of 15 most downloaded games includes other indie titles like Bastion coming in at number 3, Hollow Knight coming in at number 4, Transistor coming in at number 5, Cuphead at number 8, Stardew Valley at number 10, which is pretty incredible that game still seems to chat. 911 Operator at number 11, Ori and the Blind Forest at number 12, and Crypt of the Necrodancer at number 15. I think it's pretty incredible to see so many indie games in this top 15, even if some of them like Bastion, Transistor, and 911 Operator were heavily reduced last month. I picked up Bastion for like €3, and I think Transistor was also about €3 to $3.50. So that explains why they're so high up the ranks. And 911 Operator is always on sale for like 99 cents. And I think it was Fraser who was on the show a couple of weeks ago. He said it's actually a pretty decent game. So if you're looking for something cheap to spend your gold points on, maybe you want to check out 911 Operator. But yeah, Stardew Valley still in there. I feel like it's always within the top 10 or top 15. We've kind of reported on it a lot of times, but concerned there that they keep adding to it, adding new features. Improving the game. Like they said that this what was the last feature called, like the everything update was going to improve like a lot of the quality of life systems in the game. It's pretty nice to see that game's still up there and people are still buying it. And also Crypt of the Necrodancer, that's usually on sale for like 80% off, so that's probably why that's in at number 15. But it's one of those games, Crypt of the Necrodancer. I was really so excited for Cadence of Hyrule, and actually bought Crypt of the Necrodancer first because it was on sale, and I was like, okay, I'll check out Crypt of the Necrodancer, and if I like that, then I'll pick up Cadence of Hyrule, and played maybe like an hour of Crypt of the Necrodancer and was like, okay, yeah, this isn't for me. So I think I saved myself €25 there. But let me know if you've played Cadence of Hyrule, like, because it seemed to be a bit of like a flash in the pan. I think it wasn't what people were expecting. Well, I guess it was what they were expecting, but like if you were really informed on indie games, it was what you were expecting. But I think a lot of people thought it was just going to be like another 2D Zelda. So let me know what you thought of it. And what I thought was even more interesting about this list was that at number 2 after Untitled Goose Game is Luigi's Mansion 3. And at first glance, you might think, it's weird that Luigi's Mansion didn't outsell Untitled Goose Game. But then you have to remember that Luigi's Mansion came out on October 31st. It came out on Halloween. So in one day, it managed to chart straight at number 2. And I was also reading an article saying that it was the fastest selling Nintendo Switch game or something like that. Like, yeah, it broke some record for how many copies it sold in its first couple of days. So yeah, again, I think that was like a game that people didn't really ask for, but when it was announced, it was kind of like, oh yeah, cool, that's something to play, I guess. And then all the reviews started coming out, and it was reviewing really well. And obviously the sale, people have been buying it. Like, my Twitter feed is just full of Luigi's Mansion, like it was full of Untitled Goose Game about a month ago when that came out. So yeah, coming in with story number 2, and it is, are Playtonic being bought by Microsoft and working on a new Banjo-Kazooie game? Well, unfortunately, the answer seems to be no, apparently. But yeah, there was a lot of rumors circulating around last week, on the internet, that indie studio Playtonic, who are the creators of Yooka-Laylee and Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair, that they were going to be bought out by Microsoft, and that they've been put on a new Banjo-Kazooie game. If you didn't know Playtonic, they actually have a lot of those original Rare members in there, and this rumor was kind of sparked by the news that Rare artist Ed Bryan was joining Playtonic. So people were like, oh yeah, he was one of the original artists that worked on Banjo-Kazooie. Then Bryan went on to post a picture on Twitter of a bag with the Microsoft logo on it, which also kind of added fuels to the flame. That the rumor was that Playtonic was going to become part of Microsoft Studios, but quite sensibly, I think, Playtonic released a statement saying that they aren't working on a new Banjo-Kazooie game, and that they are going to remain an independent studio, which I think is a good thing. It means they're more open to doing things that they want to do. Like, I thought it was quite interesting that Yooka-Laylee seemed to come out to, like, it had a lot of success on Kickstarter, and then kind of came out to like medium to it's an okay game kind of reviews. And then the Switch version had massive problems because I think they had problem with was it Unity, the engine? I can't remember if they used Unity or Unreal, but whichever engine they used, they couldn't get it to work on the Switch, and they actually had to get help from Nintendo to port the game over. And then when it came, it still wasn't like the best. It didn't run so well and didn't look so great on the Switch. And then they kind of came out of nowhere with the Impossible Lair, which is their take on like the Donkey Kong, what they called, Donkey Kong. Oh, what they called? Like Tropical Freeze. Like, I can't remember what the original game is. Like Donkey Kong 64, I think it's called, isn't it? Where it's like a 2D side scroller. And then they also mixed in like some cooler aspects where it's like, oh yeah, if you want to, you can go and try and take the boss, the final boss on straight away, but obviously it makes your life a lot easier if you go and do some of the other levels first, and you gain kind of upgrades and helpers to help you through. That game came out about, I think, 2 weeks ago and has been getting really good reviews. So if you're looking for a good 2D platformer that isn't Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, then you should definitely go check out Yooka-Laylee and Impossible Lair. Then Playtonic basically went on to say that they wouldn't rule out the possibility of them ever making a Banjo game again, but they said as much as they'd love to do it, the ball isn't in our court to get the process started, which means, if you don't know, I think Banjo-Kazooie is owned by Rare, which Rare is now owned by Microsoft. So technically it's a first-party studio of Microsoft. So basically what they're saying there is that, even though they'd love to do it, it would all obviously have to come from Microsoft's end, that Microsoft would have to get the ball rolling. Like, okay, they would probably have to approach Playtonic and say, would you like to make a new Rare game? A new Banjo game. I have a feeling that there's probably a Banjo game already in the works for the Xbox Scarlet and whatever that's going to be, because with Banjo coming to Smash and the Rare Replay a few years ago, like, it seems like there is a craving for a Banjo-Kazooie game, and it kind of shows how quickly this rumor set off that people really want this to be true. And Playtonic would make a lot of sense, but I guess maybe Microsoft are moving Rare away from Sea of Thieves to maybe making a Banjo game. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Banjo game being the launch game of the Xbox, and maybe they try and make Banjo like an Xbox kind of what's the word? An Xbox kind of like like how Mario is for Nintendo. I've forgotten the word, and how Sonic is for Sega, and yeah, how Crash was for PlayStation back in the 90s. But yeah, so let's see what happens with that. And the final news story is there is a new rhythm game celebrating the life of Avicii coming to the Switch, and it will donate some of the proceeds from the game to a mental health charity. So the death of Swedish musician Avicii was tragic for many people in our generation, but Avicii Invector is a rhythm game coming to the Nintendo Switch on December 10th and is a celebration of the life of the late and great EDM star. The game is a fast-paced rhythm experience which fuses Avicii's trademark brand of uplifting EDM music coupled with serene visualscapes. The game itself, I think, looks really awesome. It seems like you're kind of flying a ship through these different like space-looking, obviously everything's in like neon landscapes, and then you're basically kind of flying it down this track, which to me looks like a cross between Thumper and Guitar Hero. And obviously, like, it maybe looks like you have to flick the joysticks and press buttons to the rhythm, and obviously all the music is from Avicii. So yeah, I thought this was an interesting story, and yeah, it's been published by Wired Productions, who were the people behind what was it called, Vostok Inc., which was a game I reviewed a long time ago, and they've also been like kind of bumping up the games that they've been publishing, which is cool. So it's cool to see that this is coming out. So which adds a nice touch is that some of the proceeds from the game will go to the Tim Bergling Foundation. Tim Bergling was the real name of Avicii. So if you're an Avicii fan and like rhythm games, pick up Avicii Invector and know that your money is going to help other young people with mental illnesses. And yeah, I think that's just like a nice little touch there. Yeah, Avicii, you know. Like, I wasn't an Avicii fan, but I felt like I knew every single track of Avicii because he was just so popular, and every time you went clubbing or went to a bar, there would be an Avicii track playing. So yeah, he obviously died very young and had a lot of issues that weren't necessarily out in the open, a lot of his own personal issues and mental issues, and it's nice to know that his legacy kind of lives on in a game like this, and that game is going to be helping people with mental illnesses. But yeah, so let's move on. Those were our three main stories this week. Let's move on to news games of note. So the first one is usually, as always, Blasphemous, which is a 2D Dark Souls-like, is getting a limited run physical edition. There'll be a standard and collector's edition. I think the collector's edition is about $79.99, and the standard they usually price it around $35. And the pre-orders are going to open up on November 15th. Second up, which is a really exciting story for me, is that Sir Eats-a-Lot is coming to the Switch. It was one of my favorite PlayStation Vita games and will be coming to the Nintendo Switch. Yeah, I think Vita fans, like, you know, hashtag Vita Island, people know this game because the developers, they're called Behind the Stone. They basically made Sir Eats-a-Lot was a Vita exclusive. Like, they only released it on the Vita. And they kind of were like, yeah, you know, we're gonna kind of take a chance here and kind of go for that market of Vita owners that were like, okay, yeah, Sony's not publishing games on the Vita anymore. Let's hope like indies do it, and they kind of came out and were like, yeah, this is just a Vita game, a bit like Reverie was by Rainbite originally. And yeah, it's a really cool, colourful, cartoony, silly game about this overweight knight that is kind of tasked with saving a kingdom as like an evil witch pours sour lemonade into the water supply or something, and it starts turning all the people of this kingdom called Gluttington kind of crazy. And yeah, it's just kind of like kind of silly fun, but nevertheless, I think it's a really beautiful game. It's really well made, fun, 2D side-scrolling, kind of platforming. And yeah, I was really excited to know that Behind the Stones are bringing it to the Switch, and I wish those guys lots of luck with the game when it comes out. The next story is that 12bound have announced their open world Breath of the Wild like Pine is coming to the Nintendo Switch on November 26th. And the pre-orders are going live on November 15th. So yeah, if you don't know what Pine is, it's like I said, it kind of they kind of announced it way back when Breath of the Wild was at its peak, and there was a lot of similarities between it and Breath of the Wild. But since then, it seems to have gone on its own path. Like it's you basically play on this massive island where evolution has taken a different route, and basically the animals have evolved quicker than the humans. So animals, are basically the what's the word? I don't know how to explain it. Like, they basically are the races that control this island, and humans are kind of the ones that are like looked down upon. And you play as this human boy in this world, and like some of the world, like the stories sound really interesting because there's like different tribes on the island. Like, there's like these moose people and crocodile people, and there's all this lore behind like how those tribes interact with each other. And you're kind of stuck in the middle of it and trying to find your own way. And it's kind of gone from Breath of the Wild to then like having this kind of unusual, like, it looks like the original World of Warcraft kind of art style, like very cartoony and a bit like kind of curved blocks, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it came out on Steam last month, I think, and it's nice to see that they got the part out quickly for the Switch. And yeah, hopefully it's a game I'll definitely be playing. Let's see, it comes out a week after Pokemon, so I'll probably be totally invested in Pokemon by then. But maybe it's something I play over Christmas. And the final game, or the final news game of note this week, is that Five Nights at Freddy's, the trilogy, is creeping its way onto the Nintendo Switch. So each game of the trilogy will get a separate release on November 29th and will cost $7.99. Seems a bit of a weird time to put them out. You would have thought they'd want them out for Halloween. But yeah, these were all like the craze about, maybe like 7 years ago when I was at university. This is when these jump scare games were massive on YouTube. I've never played a Five Nights at Freddy's game, and quite frankly, I don't really want to. Like, maybe I would do it if I was, for Halloween or something, or if I ever got into streaming, then I probably would stream myself playing it. But if you're into those games, if you have some nostalgia, maybe you're a bit younger than I am and you have nostalgia of the games, go and check them out on the eShop on November 29th. And so that was our news stories for this week. Like I said, not really big news stories, but nevertheless, I thought they were interesting. Let me know, are you surprised that Untitled Goose Game was the top-selling, the top most downloaded game of October? Personally, I'm not. What games would you would have thought would be in there? What games are you surprised are in there? Let me know over on Twitter at Switch Indie Fix. Then we will move on to our second section, our conversation portion. But before we do, let me just remind you that this week's episode of the Switch Indie Fix podcast is brought to you by the Switch Indie Fix Discord server. Like I said, the Discord server is getting very active. We actually kind of just culled some of the invalid users on there. Now it's just kind of people that are active in there, and I think that was like a great decision and a great idea by Darth to do it, because now we just have the people that are chatting most of the time. A really nice gaming community. We talk about lots of different things other than indie games as well. So if you're interested, go to switchindiefix.com/Discord. And for this week's conversation portion, I want to talk a little bit about a game called Little Town Hero, which, if you don't know, is made by Game Freak, who are the developers behind the Pokemon series. It's quite. I'm kind of like late to the game on this, because I didn't think people would consider a game by Game Freak an indie game. However, when asking people in the community and asking on Twitter, people were like, "Oh no, it's a community. It's an indie game, like they publish it themselves and stuff." So I asked for a code and luckily managed to get one. And a lot of mixed feelings about Little Town Hero. I'll just kind of start off with what I like about the game, which is, as always with games that I like, is the art style. Like, it's a very gorgeous game, very bright colors, kind of has like a cel shaded look to it. Like, I love like all the character designs. Like, they feel very, very like Japanese and very anime, like chibi style characters with big heads and little bodies. And I kind of thought there was like one scene in the game that I thought was really cool, because it had a character called the main character is called Axe, and he has bright red hair. And your kind of nemesis in the game is a guy called something beginning with M, but I can't remember his name. But basically, he has green hair, and you're both training to be a soldier under this older knight character, like, the wise old knight. And I was like, this reminds me so much of well, I guess for the West, for red and blue, or for Japan, red and green, which is obviously shown with the colours. So I thought that it's kind of cool, like cool links to Game Freak's past there. But yeah, so basically you play as a young boy called Axe, who lives in a very small town surrounded by a wall. There's no way in or out of the town apart from through the main castle, which is like the gate of the town. But yeah, you're basically told that the outside world isn't safe because there are monsters out there and things that want to hurt them. So basically the castle came along, the king in the castle came along and built the wall to protect the villagers. Nevertheless, Axe wants to leave the town and get experience out of the outside world for himself. This might be because his father disappeared when he was younger, and there's kind of like, the story's already suggesting that maybe his father is something special, and yeah, we're obviously going to find out more about him later. But yeah, basically Axe gets into trouble by trying to escape. His plan fails and he gets caught, but manages to convince one of the older knights of the town to train him as a soldier, because he has the idea that if he becomes a soldier, then he will be allowed outside of the town. So basically then when you start to be a soldier, you start learning the battle mechanics. And to be honest, the battle mechanics are really interesting. It's really like nothing that I've played before, and considering it comes from Game Freak, you would be expecting it to be Pokemon-like, and really it's totally different to Pokemon. And I think you need to think of it more of like a card game. So it's more in comparison to games like Hearthstone or Slay the Spire than a Pokemon game. But yeah, which is definitely interesting. And so basically, yeah, you have these things called Izits, which are basically ideas Axe has that he can use in combat. And combat is always kind of like one-on-one. So you play as Axe. There's no team-based combat or anything. You play as Axe against an enemy. And it's, yeah, like a card game. So you're dealt 5 of these Izits, these ideas, randomly at the start of each turn. And each Izit has a cost associated. Just knocked my coffee. Whoops. A cost associated with it between 0 and 6, which the cost is in power. They also have an attack stat and a defense stat. And basically, if your attack stat is higher than the enemy's defense stat on there, when you attack, you will break their Dazit, which is a Dazit is basically when you decide to use the Izit, it becomes a Dazit, and then you can use the Dazit to attack the enemy. So you basically have a pool of power that you can spend every turn. And after about 2 or 3 turns, you get like an extra crystal. So you always start off with just having 3 power crystals. Then after the more turns you take, the more crystals you get, and eventually you end with having 6. 6 is the max so far for me. I don't know if you can upgrade it later, but that's it for me now. So you spend your power on an Izit, it becomes a Dazit, and you use the Dazit to attack, defend, or buff. There are 3 types of moves you can do. Attacks, basically they're one use per turn, so you can use it to attack once and that's it. Defends, they usually have higher like defense points, and you can use them more than once on a turn. So if you have a defense point of like 5 and the enemy has 3 moves and each move uses 1 attack, then at the end of the move you'll be left with 2 defense, and you can still use that defend in the next turn. And the final one is kind of like a buff and kind of what's the word, like an, I can't explain it. Kind of like, so there's like buffs that basically can power up your Dazits, so they give them higher attacks or higher defenses. But there's also moves that do like they have like a bit of RNG to them, where it'll say this attack will do 3 damage to a random enemy, or there are ones that will be like, okay, this attack will do 1 damage to all enemies, or there are attacks that will do this, or they will do so much damage to the enemy's body. And basically the body is the enemy's health. Each enemy always has 3 hearts, but the further you get into the game, then each heart has like armor to it. So you have to get rid of the armor first, and then you can attack the heart when you have broken all of that enemy's Dazits. So basically you have to get rid of all the Dazits by destroying them with your Dazits from the enemy. Then at the end of the turn, it's called like a chance encounter, I think. And if you have power left, or if you have an attack left, you can use it to then attack the enemy's hearts or the enemy's body. And it doesn't matter how high your attack is. So if your attack says it does 4 damage and you attack the body, it will still only do 1. It will only take one heart away from the enemy. So like basically you have to break the enemy 3 times and damage it 3 times to then kill it. So yeah, so that's like the main kind of combat. But then also it kind of gets turned a little bit on its head, because after each turn the battle turns into like a board game. So when you finish a turn, the camera will zoom out and it will show you the whole town, and basically there are dots on the town around it, much like, you know, the board from Mario Party, like the most recent Mario Party. And then there will be like a random number generator comes up with numbers between 1 and 4. You roll it, press A, you get a number, and then you can move that many dots on the board. What's interesting though is that in the town, some of your friends will be kind of hanging around. So if you can land on one of their tiles, then they will help you out in battle. So they will have like one move that they can use to help you in the battle. Some of them are like they make your moves, one of your moves free. Some of them is like they attack the enemy's body. Some of them is like they will do like 2 attack to all of the enemy does it. And yeah, you basically move around the town and then fight the next turn like that, and keep moving and moving and moving. Yeah. And so you land on different tiles with your friends. There will also be tiles with random villagers on them who will give Axe new ideas. So basically a new move to use in the battle. And a lot of these moves are important for basically the boss battles. So yeah, when an enemy loses all of its hearts, the battle is over. And that's like a brief overview of how the battles work. Like the battles are quite complicated, but like not overly complicated. Like once you get into them, you know how to use them. It then becomes, like I say, like a card game where you're kind of like running the numbers. You're like, okay, I have free power. I can use this move and this move, and okay, can I get to the end of a turn without taking any damage? The next thing is also like a card game. Basically, you have your ideas, like your cards, and you have a deck. And once the deck is out, you run out of ideas. So basically, you can't do anything until either you spend these things called battle points, which you get if you break an enemy's dazits and don't attack them. You basically get a battle point. Then you can use 2 battle points to refresh your deck and keep fighting. Or if you take damage from the enemy, then your deck gets refreshed again and you can reuse Izits again. So that's kind of like an overview of the battle systems. Problems for me, and there are quite a lot of them, is that the battles go on for a very long time. Like I said, basically each battle is like a boss battle. Which I found that if you make a wrong move, especially early on, it can basically cost you an hour of your time, because you make a wrong move, you mess up, and you keep fighting, and you kind of think, okay, I've missed my chance now. You're like, okay, I can either just reset the game and start again, or I can try and fight my way through. And like I say, but the battles do take usually between 40 minutes to like an hour. And they can go up to like 20 plus turns, and yeah, it's very like slow and methodical, and very frustrating that if you get to the end of a battle and you lose, because then you're like, okay, then I have to redo it. The only good thing is that you basically get these points that you can spend to upgrade some of your moves. So even if you lose a battle, you get these points, and then you can upgrade your moves, fight the battle again, and usually you have a little bit more health, or you have a little bit more armor, I should say, not health. You have a bit more armor, or your attacks do more damage, or your defense moves have more armor as well. So that helps you out. But nevertheless, it's kind of annoying to be like, okay, you know, you sit down with the game and you're like, okay, I want to make some progress in it. You fight a boss for an hour, lose, and then think, okay, I've made no progress whatsoever. Like, I'm still at the same point. Like, my character's a little bit stronger, but I still have to go through the boss battle again. And yeah, one of my biggest problems with the game is that turns usually always end in a stalemate between you and the enemy. So it might be that you manage to break all of their dazits, but when it comes time to attack, you have no power left, so you can't attack it. Or that you don't have the right Izits in your hand. You don't have any attack Izits. You only have defense or like buff Izits. Sorry, I was taking a sip of coffee. So yeah, so it basically means like your first 5 moves, you might clear all of the enemy's Dazits, but you can't do any damage to it because you only have 3 power, and you don't have any power left over to spend. And it basically means that you're relying on these things called gimmicks, and they are literally called gimmicks in the game that help you out. So like some of the gimmicks are there is a chicken that does 3 damage to the enemy's body if you have a certain move in your hand that you can use. So a lot of it is like trying to try and break the enemy's Dazits and then get rid of all of the enemy's armor, and then use these gimmicks to do damage to the enemy's body. But again, a lot of that comes down to like RNG and luck. And there were also times where I managed to do all of those steps, but again, I didn't have power to use the move that I needed to use to get the chicken to attack the enemy. So it just kind of turns into like, okay, yeah, great. Now I'm sat with like 6 battle points in my like I don't know, like in my hand, but there's nothing really to spend the battle points on apart from refreshing your moves, and you can also use them to swap cards in and out as well. But yeah, it's just annoying. Like, I just feel like the game should give you should start off with 6 power straight away, and it would make the game so much quicker because you could do damage. And yeah, right. Like, to me, the boss battles kind of feel like they're just like time wasters. To be like, okay, there's not that much content in this game to actually play through. Like, a lot of it is, apart from the battles, a lot of it is just like, oh, okay, run from here to here. Good, now run from here to here. There's no secrets or anything to find in the game, really. There's no like chests to look at. There's no shops, which is annoying because there are shops and they look amazing, but you can't buy anything in them, or you can't buy potions, or you can't buy buffs, you can't buy new armor. And it's such like a visually like beautiful game where I'm like, okay, I'd love to be able to dress Axe up in like a new outfit, or give him some cooler armor to upgrade his stats, instead of just basically going onto an upgrade tree and doing it that way. And like I said, I think I'm like 5 hours into the game, so I'm still early, and I don't know if that is the case later on. But from what I've seen of other people playing it, it doesn't look like it. So yeah, so it's a little bit annoying. Like, it's like I keep saying, it's so close to being a good game, but for me, playing it just feels like an absolute slog on my time. And like I could be playing something else and progressing through it and actually finish it and have a review ready. Whereas this, I'm just like, ugh, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not good at the game as well. That could also be the problem. And technically, yeah, like, though it looks good, there are some frame rate dips here and there and stuttering when playing the game in handheld. And also, yeah, honestly, the music is, there are a few tracks in it, but when you're listening to the same song for an hour on repeat, it soon gets annoying. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just such a weird thing, because I remember when this game was announced, there was like a lot of talk in the Pokemon community that, yeah, Game Freak is kind of losing interest in Pokemon now, because the argument was the Pokemon company doesn't see Game Freak as like their premium developer anymore. Like, Niantic has taken that place because Pokemon Go is now so successful and makes so much money. So people were thinking like, okay, Game Freak are like backing themselves up by putting this game out on the Switch, and that at the time they were saying, oh, like, the game looks so much visually better than what Sword and Shield did when Sword and Shield was first shown. Like, I don't think that's the case anymore, but that was kind of like the rhetoric at the time. And yeah, I don't know, it just kind of feels like they had this cool idea for a battle system, and we're like, okay, what can we do with this? Then do quickly with it. And yeah, I was kind of chatting to Paul from Switched On Games, and he was like the first review that I watched, or the first gameplay that I watched, and I asked him like, why do you think the game is only priced at $24.99? And he was like, yeah, well, he basically said like, yeah, there's not much of a game there outside of the battling, and yeah, I would agree with that. So yeah, after 5 hours, like I say, you can take my insight with a little pinch of salt, because I haven't played the full game. But to be honest, I think for $24 there are a lot of other games out there that are way better than this. And also, like, I don't know. Even though it's made by Game Freak, I don't think that's like a reason to be like, okay, yeah, you should try this game. Like, definitely, if you want to pick it up, if you're really interested, definitely wait for it to go on sale, because because I don't know, unless you're really into like Slay the Spire, and you're like, okay, I want to play through something that is colourful and has a story and is a little bit more lighthearted, then maybe you'd be into it, because it is like Slay the Spire. Like, battles are tactical and drawn out, but they are too drawn out. Like, there's just too many levels. Like, it's like using the Shrek quote. It's like an onion. There's just so many layers to the battle where you're like, okay, I've done all this stuff, and I just don't have enough energy left, or I don't have enough power left to actually do the thing that is important to actually end the battle. It's like, like this game, the battle system is not like a closer. It's like, okay, I've gotten through all of this stuff, all of these layers, all of these systems, but then when I actually need to do damage to kill the enemy, I just can't do it. And that's the frustrating part and the annoying part that makes me think, well, why does the enemies need armor? Like, it's just ridiculous that they get like 8 points of armor, and like most of your moves only do like between 3 and 5 damage. So it means you have to hit them sometimes 3 times before you can even do any damage to their health. And then also there's like points of the game where it starts feeling a bit unfair, that like enemies just get random buffs just because. Like, there's like one boss, like the sheep boss, where when you do a damage to his health, he gets a buff that makes him angry and all his stats get boosted. And he's just like, why? Like, it was hard enough to hit him when his stats weren't boosted, and now it's even harder and more annoying and more of like a slog to try and get his health down. But yeah, like I say, if you're really into these strategy kind of card games, then maybe you'd like it. But honestly, I would say wait for a sale, because it's not. It's an okay game. It's nothing that you need to rush out and go and buy. And so that was kind of my review, kind of early impressions of Little Town Hero. I know a lot of people have played it, but it just seems to be a lot of reviewers have played it, and a lot of people are all saying the same thing. Apart from Kotaku, like, they were quite positive about it, but I think they really had like the perfect man for the job, like the perfect person that would be into these games reviewed it, and obviously that was like a good result for the game. But yeah, if you have picked it up, let me know what you think. I was going to say, for $24.99 or €24.99, you could also get Slay the Spire. So I would definitely buy that instead, because that game is a lot more, the mechanics are a lot more polished, and they make a bit more sense, and it's not very frustrating, and there's a lot more replayability because it's kind of like a roguelike. But other than that, I think that's the end of the podcast. I'm just going to double check on Twitter. That looks like that is the end. So a little bit shorter this today, guys, but I hope you enjoyed it nevertheless. Just a couple of reminders. We just posted our review of new Super Lucky's Tale up on the website at switchindiefix.com. Chicken Perm reviewed it. He really liked it. He for me, he was like the perfect person to do the review, because he loves 3D platformers. It'd be awesome if you could go and check it out, because it's doing quite well, and I want to kind of keep that going as much as I can. So if you got two minutes, go and give that a read, because it's a really good review. The podcast will go up on podcast services like always, and those are Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and pretty much wherever you listen to a podcast, you'll find this episode. Please make sure you review it wherever you can. Reviews are always important, because they help new people. They help convince new people to support us. Just a little bit of extra news from me on like a personal side. I've started. I don't know if you've seen it, but I've started doing the marketing for a game called Knife Boy. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that Carl Fredrickson, the developer, was on, I think, episode 32 of the podcast. And I'm helping him out, kind of market the game. The game is out on Steam at the minute, but is planned to come to Switch and the other consoles next year. So if you see that on Twitter, just know that I am like involved in it. So anything I say, you should maybe take it with a pinch of salt. But if you do want to like kind of support the game, you can go and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at KnifeBoyGame, or you can go to Steam and buy the game. I think it's about €8 for the game. So yeah, if you're interested, if you want to try out a cool Metroidvania made by one developer with like a very unique art style, then go check out Knife Boy. But if you want to get in contact with me directly, you can hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at SwitchIndieFix, or come and join the Discord server at switchindiefix.com/Discord. Twitter, I'm very close to getting 1,000 followers, and that's kind of like a goal of mine for this year, is to get there. We're currently at 969. Nice. So if you have been listening and you do have a Twitter account, that would be cool if you could come and follow me there. If you want to see some more kind of like indie game news and some of my own like insights. Also, we have a competition running right now where you can win a PDP face-off plus audio wired controller, a very long name, but basically, if you don't know what this is, you definitely have seen it. It's the controller where you can plug a headphone jack into it and talk through the controller. So yeah, anyway guys, thanks very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and I will see you all next time. Have a great weekend and week. Bye bye.